All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for attending today's session, and it is the MREA Book Club for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It is part of the Keller Williams First Realty video book seminar that we'll start recording, maybe I'm putting out in the YouTube video. I think right now we're looking at maybe about 9 sessions with 3 topics each, somewhere like that. You don't have to be at every one of these. If you find value, hopefully you do, that's awesome. If not, they'll be recorded, and I'll have Cassidy put them out on the webinar page or the YouTube video page for the future so you can catch it. Certainly, the book's out there. You can read it. I just felt like for my own purposes, as they always say, teaching is going to be help me gain and learn the knowledge a little better sometimes than just reading. So thanks for joining me today. We've got about 4 or 5 people on the call. Some are on video, some are on the phone, so kind of have a mixture, which is perfectly fine. And I'm just assuming everybody can hear me for the most part. I know the system's working, so if you can't hear me, then you might have to test your system later. So thank you, and we're going to try to stay really close to being on time. I want to respect your time and my time, so we'll make this really quick for a 30-minute session. So, of course, a brief overview of me, just for you guys that may be new or don't know me personally. I've been with Keller Williams for about 5 years. As a team, we'll be on pace to do about $800,000 in GCI for 2018. We have 13 agents on our team and 2 staff members. I'm also obviously an investor at the Market Center. Had 19 years at IBM, 20 years in the Air National Guard. And we are expanding our business and our team by the end of the year, specifically to Colorado Springs. So we're going to start moving into that expansion model by the end of this year, probably in the next 30 days. So anyways, a little bit about me. So we're going to go into the agenda. So kind of session 1, we're going to go into foundational models and what's called the 6 myth understandings. Those are the first couple of chapters in the book. We're not covering the book from A to Z. I just took out 24 of the larger topics, and we're just going to kind of break those down a little bit. I won't go through all the sessions. And I'm going to have my hard copy notes here, so you'll see me look to the right a little bit, just so I'm not totally staring at my screen here all the time. So foundational models, really everything you do. And most people that have great success in anything they do, they have a model, right? And it's the models that you want to follow. That's what Ignite's for. That's what a lot of technology and tools that we use today have the models. The models are really what you want to follow. So I just kind of put a couple of quotes on here. And basically just said, long ago, I realized that success leaves clues, that people who produce outstanding results do specific things to create those results. Another quote, actions are the sources of all results. This process of discovering exactly and specifically what people do to produce a specific result is called modeling. Another quote, to me, modeling is the pathway to excellence. The movers and the shakers of the world are often professional modelers. People who have mastered the art of learning everything they can by following other people's experience rather than their own. To model excellence, you should be a detective, an investigator, someone who asks a lot of questions and tracks down all the clues to what produces excellence. Building from success of others is one of the fundamental aspects of learning. What Gary's opening this book up to basically say is, I've been there, done that. And without being arrogant about it, he says, let me go through all the pain points and let me show you what you need to do to be successful. If you'll just follow the models and you'll just follow the system without reservation, you will be successful. However, we're humans and we're always going to be like, well, let's twist it this way. Let's tweak it this way. Let's try this. I don't think that's going to work here. We always outthink ourselves. So the MREA goes really into great depths on exactly what it takes to become a millionaire real estate agent. Maybe a millionaire real estate agent isn't your passion and you don't want to, grow to that level. However, you can scale those models down to a more manageable level as to what you want your actual production to be. It's still true. Whether you use the economic model at $1 million or you use it at 100,000, it's still applicable. And we'll go through some of those models deeper in the program, not today, but over the next few weeks. So that's kind of that slide. Here's some of the foundational models. Is what he really gets into is, you want to start with a proven model. One that's successful. Once it's successful, or you hit a ceiling, then you're going to get creative. Here, the point to him is, too many times we come in with our own ideas of creativity. Hey, has anybody tried this? Hey, what about this? What about that? Hey, this company just called me and said they can guarantee me at least one piece of business which pays for, right, that you get one closing, and hey, you paid for the business. Yeah, that's being creative before you're actually building a model or using a model. What he says is, it's like what I say is, like, if you're a baseball player, a golfer, a dancer, or whatever your profession or sport may be, you got to do the fundamentals first. You've got a coach that's teaching you, look, to throw the ball, point your hip, reach your arm back, throw forwards. You can't just go out there and go, well, hey, let me try this. Let me put the ball on my foot and kick it towards the catcher and see if that works just as good. Hey, that's being creative. However, somebody's tried that before, and that might not be that's not the base fundamental model. So that's all this is kind of saying. A stable model or a stable business foundation is using models first. And then once you hit a ceiling, then you might have to get creative. Like, hey, I used this system. I was able to pull 5 deals out of it. 6 months in a row now, I'm stuck at 5 deals each month. How do I get to 7 deals or 8 deals? That's when you start getting creative. Don't do it the other way around. The other model just talks about that natural ability. Most people get creative before giving the model enough time because they did not properly implement the model or wanted to find a shortcut. We all do that. We become impatient, or like, hey, this isn't working. This isn't working. I've been lead generating. Well, maybe you're not lead generating following the model, or maybe you're just not being patient enough. So that's his big point is these work, and it doesn't matter. And we're going to get into those types of the listing leads and leverage and some things like that in a little bit. But all of this stuff works. It's just a matter of our lack of patience sometimes, or we decide we know how to do it better and we twist it. Natural ability can only take you so far. Everyone's going to hit a ceiling. No matter who you are, I mean, you could be super talented or you could be mediocre talented. You're just going to hit a different ceiling level based on your talent. So the point of that is everyone hits a ceiling, and therefore you do have to get creative once you kind of hit that ceiling, and then you will also do improved models. So you're going to look at your model and go like, okay, let's just give you an example of what like a model might look like is, hey, I want to go door knocking. Just making an example up. I'm going to go door knocking. Hey, I did 20 doors. I had the scripts down, and only one person answered the door. And you do that 5 times in a row, 5 days in a row, and it's not working. You only get one person. So obviously you're going to get creative a little bit, and you're going to say, well, maybe I need to go on Saturday instead of Monday at 10 a.m. That would be a very simplistic way of being somewhat creative but still following the model. All right, enough about the models. The bigger the model, the further you can ride it, of course. And then another note that I had was the most important achievement question you can ask yourself for achievement is, how will I break through if I hit a ceiling? So if you make a big model, like for my team, we had a goal of like 120 closed units and about 1.2 million in GCI this year. How are we going to get there? We had to build a bunch of models to be able to get there. Is that bigger than we're going to be? Probably. However, it was a big model and I didn't have to do a whole lot of tweaking and twisting to it. I would rather set a bigger model and a bigger goal than have to redo my model once we achieved it in the first quarter, as an example. So that's just kind of an example. All right, getting into what they call the 3 L's. I'm sure if anybody's been with us long enough, they know that the 3 L's stand for leads, listings, and leverage. So leads, everyone has 2 jobs, and we're going to kind of get into that. And then listings, it's the gift of the real estate gods. Leverage is time versus money. So let's talk a little bit about that. Leads, I think the big misnomer sometimes, not only in our industry, but any self-employed industry is you get a license, you get the job because you're self-employed. However, we put too much value on the license and not enough value on how do I go get business. So a lot of like even doctors, I have buddies that are chiropractors that have been in and out of the business because they don't know how to get the leads. So it's not just unique to us. It's unique to any profession. So you just got to know getting into this profession, it's about lead generation and maintaining the skill set and the license that you have to do your craft or your practice. Many think or behave in a way that since they have a license, that will be sufficient in having a successful business. I hate to break it to anybody, but just getting your license does not guarantee you business, right? We all know that. So you've got to be out there generating that business. Listings, obviously you've heard us kind of beat that into the ground. Gary beats it into the ground all the time too. It's high leverage, maximum earning opportunity. Getting a listing through, and even if it's a hot market, a seller's market, or a buyer's market, it's still the same amount of work, generally speaking, on a listing. It just may sit longer in a buyer's market. However, there is a lot less activity when you have to deal with a listing than it is the buyer. And a lot of that's just because you're not having to drive the buyers all over the place. So the point of that is it's easy to say listings are going to give you the most bang for your buck because you're going to do it in less time. And when you get with teams or you decide to build a team yourself, you're typically going to hold the listings more for your last thing that you give away because you're able to do maybe 2 to 3 listings effort-wise than you can with a buyer. You need both, don't get me wrong, but that's the last thing I gave up in my business was the listings because I can handle quite a few of them. Their highly productive agents can obtain 15 to 25 listings per month. That's kind of a number that he spouted out in his book. So you can see as buyers, you may not be able to handle 25 buyers in a month. That would be almost over one closing a day. And if you're trying to take that many buyers out to that many houses to find it, you kind of can see the math there. It'll double or triple your gross income on the same amount of work was another nugget he kind of put in there. Listings beget more business. So we all know that rule that I get quite a few sign calls. We get quite a few, like, I don't pay for Zillow, but they come off of Zillow because we're advertising there. Some things like that. So we're getting more business just by having that listing. His statistic is if you're marketing correctly, you will get 1 buyer out of every listing that you have. Now, they may not purchase that house, of course, but you picked up the buyer to purchase a property of some sort. So it's really a 2 for 1. Whereas a buyer is really more of a, hey, can I get referrals out of them? And or when they need to sell in 2 to 4 to 7 years, I have a piece of business out of them. 1 buyer closed per listing if market's right. We talked about that. So the next one was leverage, which is time versus money. Time's not always money. Not all activities are money producing. So it's kind of a misnomer as people say, well, time versus money, time is my money. Not necessarily. If you're focusing on the wrong activities, it's not maybe making you any money. So therefore, it's not time and money kind of scenario. What you really want to do is focus on the one thing. What activity makes you the most money? Typically, honestly, and it's kind of like a broken record, lead generation is your one thing that makes you the most money. A lot of times on our team, what highly successful agents do is they block out 2 to 4 hours in the morning for their lead generation. And again, lead generation doesn't have to be just always on the phone. It could be having coffee with people, so on and so forth, building a business-to-business network, so on and so forth. What you're really looking for is to mark on your calendar that you're dedicated to that lead generation for 2 to 4 hours. And then you leave the rest of your afternoon open, as Gary says, he calls it his chaos time. That way you can answer your emails, you can handle any issues, any emergencies, any showings, any contracts, those kind of things are set for the afternoon. But his recommendation is never to do, or to always put, the first 2 to 4 hours of your day as lead generation. Design and develop tools and systems. So another thing that we can really use for leverage is documenting what we do, how we do it. KW has some pretty good tools out there that documents exactly how you might have a checklist for, doing a listing, or a checklist for taking a buyer out, or a contract to close type process. Those are awesome checklists. You might want to tweak those a little bit for yourself, and that's totally a good thing to do. However, what we really want to do is find a process that we can, rinse, wash, and repeat, or however that saying goes. You just want to be able to have that. Plus, when you have leverage and you bring in somebody to support you down the road, you're not spending all your time trying to document all your processes. I think that's where a lot of agents fail to go from the next step, possibly from like an independent, if they wanted to add an admin, not even a team, just an administrative support mechanism, is there can be some frustration because maybe the lead agent wasn't able to clearly train or articulate or provide processes to the administrative staff. So that is, again, it's not at fault of the agent. That just may not be their skill set. It just may not be their priority. However, that's where there can be some frustration, and both parties can be like, hey, this just isn't working. So anyways, just know systems, tools, and documentation is really important. All right, we're gonna move into the next topic for the last 15 minutes here. And basically it's called the six myth understanding. Couple of quotes. Fears are educated into us and can, if we wish, be educated out. We've all been there, right? We hear stories, it freaks us out, or like, on a weird note, right? I'm going to Cancun in October. I mean, obviously there's news out there right now that 8 bodies were found dead and in trash bags, and that fear could be real, right? I mean, however, I have a choice to make. Do I want to go and just make sure I'm more protective and cautious, or do I want to let that fear drive me out, right? Beliefs can generate to great confidence, and at worst, they can lead to extreme doubt. I mean, I don't know how many times you guys can think of times where you've heard something like door knocking. Oh my gosh, I would never do that. That's the craziest thing ever. People are going to yell at me. People are going to scream at me. Okay, I say so, right? And you move on to the next door, right? I mean, my wife can get mad at me, and I don't really say so, or else I wouldn't probably be alive today. But I kind of go like, okay, what do we do to fix this and make it better, right? If doubts are allowed to exist, can truly undermine your confidence. Your actions are ultimately your dreams. Doubts are the biggest naysayer for us. I mean, I always try to think about like when you have kids and stuff like that. If you let them, a lot of times, right, they're going to come up to you and go like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. And you're like, sure you can. And we're there coaching them and helping them get through that. We need to be able to do that for ourselves, right? How can we get somebody that can help coach us through, hey, what are you scared about? What's your fear? How can I get you through that? MREA core activities that must be successfully and consistently done before massive sales achievements can be attained. So what they're really saying is you got to focus on the models, and you got to really do all that you can to strive for success in those models. This section is really about fear, and the source of most of your fears is a myth. Fears are usually created solely by myths. We think of the worst case scenarios. It's like I train people all the time to work on the phones with internet leads, and they're like, I don't do the phones. Well, why not? And I just ask the question. I'm not threatening. I'm like, well, why not? Well, that's just not me. Okay. Why is that not you? Do you talk to your family? Do you talk to your friends? Yeah, sure, on the phone. I'm like, okay, so you're comfortable with the phone, right, and using it and talking to people. Well, yeah, that's people I know. Okay, cool. So what's your hesitation when it comes to talking with somebody you don't know that signed up on your website? There's a relationship there, right? Not a relationship. There's a point of interest together, a mutual interest, and they're like, well, because they might hang up on me and they might yell at me. Well, okay, yeah, I mean, that's fair. However, do you know what percentage does that? Well, no. Okay, well, it's maybe 5% does that. Oh, well, that's not too bad, right? And so, you kind of step them through there and you coach them through it. And what you find out is they've just heard all these horror stories from all these other agents, or they've self-created those doubts in their head. All right, we'll move on to the next topic. So these were the 6 myths that we're going to kind of go through. I can't do it. It can't be done in my market. It would take too much time and effort. It's too risky. I'll lose money. My clients will only work with me. Only I can deliver quality service. And having a goal and not fully realizing it is a negative thing. So I'm going to break each one of these myths down, and that's going to kind of conclude our session. The myth, I can't do it. The truth is, until you try, you can't possibly know you can or you can't. When you say I can't do it, you're assigning limits to your potential. There's an example he gives in his book that we've all heard, which is Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile, right? John Landry attempted many, many times and could never get it done. And there was a mental gap across the public that said it just can't be done. Everybody was naysayer saying there's no way it can do it, right? Roger Bannister decided he was going to do it. And what he did is he just changed his thinking. He trained differently. He went out and ran quarter miles at 59 seconds. So that basically he would not go to the next quarter mile until he could get the first quarter under 59 seconds. Anyways, long story short, he obviously ran it. Mindset changed. He never doubted that he couldn't do it or could do it. So therefore, it worked. Everybody else now obviously is able, not everybody, but there's a larger percentage of people started doing it after he hit it. You can never know what you're truly capable of until you try and you don't give up. I think that's really tenacity is what I see in a lot of people that are highly successful here. I know me, I kind of have failure is not an option mentality. Sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes that's a bad thing. Sometimes I'll keep trying to beat something because it's making me mad, it's not working, and I might waste a little too much time rather than just calling it quits and moving on. But I think there's a tenacity in people that are successful. You can never know what you're truly capable of until you don't try, or until you try and you don't give up. We talked about that, and many successful folks feel like they're trying at all. Not trying at all is the worst thing you can do. Let me say that again. I kind of butchered that. Many successful folks feel like not trying at all is the worst you can do. I'm a big believer in try everything. When my kids were younger, I kind of tried to encourage them to do all sports and let them choose, right? Go do soccer. Oh, I don't want to do soccer. It's too much running. Hey, go try it. You might like it, right? Football, oh, it's going to hurt when they hit me. Cool, go try it, right? And you'd be amazed at the sports you thought that they would or wouldn't like was the opposite, just because they tried. A second myth is it can't be done in my market. The truth is, yes, it can, but you might need to take a new approach. So what you're really saying here is I haven't found the right way to make it work in my market. Start off by trying things that are working elsewhere using their models. Tweak it from there. You know, listing homes, putting signs in yards, doing flyers, door knocking. The fundamentals work in this business. You don't have to get over extravagant and buy internet leads. You don't have to do all of those things. The fundamentals work. You just got to learn those fundamentals. And you might have to tweak some things, like he said in there, to go like, hey, maybe if I'm door knocking this neighborhood, it's a higher end price point. Therefore, maybe I want my material to be maybe a little more polished and professional. Whereas maybe if I'm over in the apartments or the first time home buyer market, it's going to look a little differently. The reality of it is the fundamentals work if you follow the models. Start off by trying things that are working elsewhere using their models and then tweak it from there. For us, I'll just give you a quick example, is social media was huge for us. That's just a strategy we chose to use. I'm not sure there was a lot of models or foundations around that when we first started using it 4 or 5 years ago in real estate, so we kind of made our own path. However, that was huge for us. I mean, we took that to the next level and we just said, we're not going to let it fail, and it worked very well for us. And we can give you examples of that later. Justin's going to run a Facebook class, I think, for the office in a few weeks and some things like that. And it's going to be a free class and so on and so forth. So more to come on that. I got 5 minutes, so I'm kind of speeding through a little bit. A third myth is it would take too much time and effort. I would lose my freedom. Meaning success is scary to people because they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to work 80 hours a week to be successful, or when I do get successful. Most people fall prey to this one. People truly believe that the more successful you become, the more time and effort you will have to invest and the more freedom you'll lose. I'm not willing to make the sacrifices you would have to make to have that level of success, is what a lot of people say. Any given approach to working with corresponding will create a limit to the amount of production that can be done by one person. Some people believe they have hit their limits of success at that point. Then they try to get around it by working more hours, and that costs them their freedom. When time and effort are more than you wish, then you have to leverage progress to the next level. So I'm going to tell you, especially as newer agents, you're going to have to put the hours in, and I think that's a misconception sometimes people have is, well, I am putting in 40 hours. And then I really break down their schedule, and they're like, well, I had to do this, and I had to do that, and I had this appointment, and I had to do this, and I had to do that. Well, that's really not 40 hours. In your mind, you did 40 hours. However, perhaps if you documented what you did on a daily basis, it might not necessarily ring true. But moving forward, I think people get scared because they're like, hey, I did 30 deals this year as a single agent and I'm at my wit's end. I don't believe it. I mean, I do believe that. I mean, that is a lot of work for one person. So how do you take it? Do you want to get bigger is the question I usually ask. And if the question is yes, I want more deals, then I go, how are you going to handle that without fracturing your family and anything else that may be suffering because of the amount of time you're working? The answer always needs to be leverage, right? Bring somebody in, and the first hire is usually going to be an administrative assistant capacity, because they can take those systems off your plate, the tools off your plate, the documentation. They can be helping you coordinate with vendors and some of the things that maybe, could be done at their level, if you will. Okay. Another myth is it's too risky. I'll lose money. Risk is in direct proportion to how well you hold your incremental costs accountable to producing incremental results. Are you the it costs too much person, or are you the we can't afford not to do it type? So you really have investor type mentality, and you have the I'm watching the budget. And neither one of them are wrong, to be honest with you. But you just have to know when you're working with people, you're going to see that. Minimize your risk by holding your money and decisions accountable. For example, what's your cost versus an ROI? I might not be against buying Zillow leads. I'm just giving you an example. I really might not be. However, I'm not going to sign up for a 4-year commitment because I want to see if it works. So I'm negotiating something down for 30 or 60 days. And then they always are like, well, you need to give it 180 days to make it work, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is, I am the type of person that is, I want to have a short-term commitment and see if it truly works. What they have is called a red light, green light strategy. And what that really means, right, is green light is I have the money. I want to try and invest in something short-term. And basically, I want to, the thing we want to measure is how do we check the return on our investment, right? Are we tracking that numbers? If I'm spending $50 a month for this, maybe my ROI needs to be 2 to 3 times. If I'm not getting that, I'm going to shut it off. But it's short duration. I'm not doing 2 to 3 year contracts. So the point of that is if your ROI is there and you're making money, then go ahead and boost that up a little bit more and go to a green light position. Okay? The last 2 that we have, I believe, is clients will only work with me, and I'm going to speed through these a little bit. My clients will only work with me, only I can deliver quality service. Truth is, your clients aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to the standards that you represent. Number 1 reason great agents don't succeed to their highest potential is this. They feel like, oh, I can't give my client to anybody on my team because they only want to use me. There are some rare cases that is true. However, in most cases, it's not. It's us telling ourselves that. Gary says here, please hear me well. If you get nothing out of this book, please consider this important point. Whatever services you provide as specialized in can be duplicated through the right people implementing systems to achieve standards you approve. However, this is where, in my opinion, most agents fail. They are not always the greatest at documenting processes, training new staff or agents, delegating, and holding people accountable to standards. Kind of management type stuff. We're not always the greatest managers, but we're good at negotiating and we're good at, getting deals. All right, the final one is basically having a goal. The myth is having a goal and not fully realizing it's a negative thing. Having a goal and not trying to achieve it is actually the negative thing. Fear of failure actually has a phobia name. Fear of failure is really especially a public failure. Public failure is what scares people the most. That's why you have stage fright and all those other things. If there's anything in history that bears out, it's that failure almost always precedes success. Remember, don't give up. You're almost close to a success as soon as you get through a failure. Almost happens every time. And you can look in history. It's time and time again, whether it's Edison or Lincoln or anybody, Michael Jordan. Change your perspective on failure. Failure is progress. Fail forward. You hear that all the time. Fail forward. Don't get caught up in the failure. Learn from it and move on. Maybe you learn to eliminate an approach. Use failures as stepping stones. You'll have to fail a few times before you get it right. I tell my agents over here all the time, look, you're going to go through this process, this cycle of, oh, I got my first lead if they don't show up, right, for the appointment. Hey, I got my appointment, and they don't sign the paperwork, and they go elsewhere. Hey, I got an appointment, and now they don't qualify. Hey, I'm taking a buyer out to look at houses. We wrote an offer, or they're being unreasonable, or whatever the story is, right? There's all these struggle points that can have you on an emotional roller coaster. My point is you're learning every step of the way, and you're going to get better at it because of that. All right, that's all I have for today. Thank you all for attending and joining. And if you guys have any questions, you can email me at mikeNelson@kw.com. Let me know. If you want to, just let me know. Is this good? Was this bad? Honestly, I'm still going to record them one way or the other. But if you guys want to attend some more, that's awesome. If not, I'm totally okay with that too. Thank you. Have a good day.